find my script. All right, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the People's House. This hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing of the Joint City Council Committee on Children and Youth and Education. I'd like to recognize and thank my wonderful chair of the Education Committee, Councilwoman Jannie Blackwell, who's here today. Thank you so much, Councilwoman Blackwell, for being so supportive of all these issues. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear testimony on resolution numbers 190300 and 190301. I would like to, we're going to go ahead and get started, and I want to thank especially this room for coming out here. So could we have our clerk please read, could the clerk please read the title of the resolution before we get started?
Resolution number 190300, authorizing the Committee on Children, Youth, and the Committee on Education to conduct hearings evaluating needs and identifying priorities for services and supports to strengthen Philadelphia schools, and resolution number 190301, authorizing the Committee on Children and Youth and the Committee on Education to conduct hearings exploring the creation of a School District of Philadelphia Community Connector position to further enhance connections between families, caregivers, and school communities.
Thank you very much. So to our audience members today, I want to thank each and every one of you, especially our young people and students who came out today to talk about the state of our schools. 4 years ago, the Councilwoman and I held a hearing very similar to this one. It was in 2016, and our schools were just coming out of a series of budget cuts. We were still under the governance of a state takeover commission. We were struggling with many of the budget cuts that had existed during the Corbett era, when we lost nurses and counselors out of our public schools. We had thousands of staff members and people raising their voices that we needed to have a new set of priorities that were not only governed by school boards and city halls, but most importantly by the people of this city, and especially by the educators, students, parents, and family members who live the consequences of the policies that we enact. And I would like to say that in the past 3 years, we have been able to do so much because the people of this city set a new set of priorities. The people in this room helped set priorities that restored a nurse and counselor back to every single public school. It was middle and high school students who led a campaign for clean water access, water hydration stations, and new laws to ensure that school children have safe drinking water in their schools. We've doubled the number of social workers in schools, and we've made sure that every single elementary school has an instrumental music program. And it's important to remember that that work just doesn't happen on its own. That happens when the people speak and when our leaders listen to all of you. And that's why it matters that students, parents, and community members and educators know, we know what works, and most often we know what doesn't. And I know that as a lifelong community activist, that is going to take all of us in this room, to make our schools and our children's lives and our educators the top priority in the city of Philadelphia. Because when you speak up and speak out, your agenda, your voices, and your experiences, we can't turn away. And that's the most important thing. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today. I also want to especially acknowledge our school board members, Mallory Fix-Lopez, Julia Danzy, and Angela McIver, who are here today. And I think that Letitia Hinton might be joining us a little bit later. But thank you for being here and listening. I know you do this every month, but it's also a different venue for people to open up about what their priorities are. So thank you for being partners in this, and we're looking forward to that. And I also want to add that our work is not done. Very clearly. We have a long way to go. After decades of financial instability, though, the school district is in a position to invest. That's what this city council did. We stabilized schools' budgets over the next several years to make sure that we would not be talking about budget cuts, that we would not be making choices about whether we keep a librarian or a teacher. We were no longer going to be having conversations about school aides versus school police. That is not the conversation that we need to have. Our conversation, though, does need to be about priorities. What are the most important things that we need in our school right now? And how can we make sure that they become priorities not only for this city, but for the state of Pennsylvania? Even as we speak in Harrisburg, there is a discussion right now on the books to expand the state budget by $100 million, not to go to our public schools, but to go to EITC, which is many of us believe to be a backdoor voucher program. Now, if there is $100 million to go towards a backdoor school voucher program, there's $100 million that need to go into public school facilities. There's $100 million that need to go into lowering class size, to making sure that there are sufficient counselors in our schools, and to making sure that our kids and our families go to school buildings free of lead, asbestos, and mold, and in modern school facilities. And over the past year, I've been to every corner of the city, listening to families and school staff. And what Philadelphians want isn't anything magical. It's not rocket science. The truth is that what we want is very simple. There's no parent in this room who doesn't want immediate repairs made to their schools so that the toxins that impact the health of our teachers, school staff, and students do not continue. There's not a person in this room who doesn't believe that our kids have a right to fully funded schools and that the state is not fulfilling that mission. There's not a person in this room that does not see a need for air conditioning and temperature control in our school buildings, or for playgrounds, or for counselors, or a dedicated staff member at each school to build bridges between schools, communities, and families. These investments are what local control is about. This is why we fought so hard to end that state takeover, because your needs come first, and what that looks like is going to be up to you. So I want to thank this entire room for taking this afternoon to set the priorities. Next week, the school district will come before City Council to talk about what is needed and what they are looking for. But ahead of that, we want your voices to come first. To our young people who are here today, who are bravely stepping forward, thank you. We're listening, and we're proud to uplift you. And I just want to offer a little bit of time for my council colleagues to come up here to say just a few brief remarks. Councilwoman Blackwell, you've done so much for our school district and for our city. Thank you for co-hosting this hearing. If you'd like to give any brief remarks, please feel free.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Gim, and we want to as well thank the school board members and thank all of you who are here to talk about where we are and where we can go with regard to the school district of Philadelphia and our students. We're going to also have other committee hearings, at least one. We want to talk a little bit about curriculum and about what we'd like to see. So we'll have a resolution with regard to that. And as Councilwoman Gim has said, we're looking forward to having our hearings next week, because there is much we need to discuss, much we need to talk about, that makes us feel that we're in sync about where we are and where we'd like to go. So thank you very much, everyone, and we're looking forward to these hearings.
Thank you, Councilwoman Blackwell. I'd like to recognize Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown. Thank you so much for being here. And any remarks?
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman,
Good afternoon.
and to Council Lady Jannie Blackwell, the Chair of our City Council Committee on Education. I come to you this morning as Vice Chair of both the Committee on Children and Youth and the Vice Chair of Education. And this may be the first opportunity I will have had to commend Councilwoman Helen Gim for making the recommendation when she arrived to City Council that it might be wise of us and very prudent to have a committee that is squarely laser beam focused on children and youth, and that's what this committee represents. While there was overlap between education and DHS and amongst those committees in the past, to know now that we have a committee that is purely about what PCCY does every year, 9 days a week, looking out and figuring out how we can improve the lives and life chances of our city's children. This committee works with PCCY and a host of others, but they come to mind most readily for me because our office, oh my, Donna Cooper's here, come to mind more readily or most readily because of the work we've done in the past. While there has been incremental progress, and we know revolutionary progress is not always within our reach. It's expensive, and it takes time to pull people along or pull the elephant up the hill in syrup, trying to get other people to come to grips with the change you're trying to make. But incremental progress does have its value, and as we look at listening to the school district about a week from now, it's actually a week from now, what you share with us today and tell us today will inform how we work with the school district to, I guess, more readily champion and shout out those areas that we continue to have serious concerns about. I'm also of the belief that we should see the glasses half full and be possibility thinkers when it comes to our children, because we don't have a choice. We have to see the glasses half full and seek and insist on the best for our children. So I look forward to your testimony that will inform how we work closely with the school district as we look towards those budget hearings a week from now. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Reynolds Brown. And again, thank you for your leadership on children and youth. Always, it's been really wonderful, and you know, we will continue on. We will continue on in your name. And I'd like to recognize the presence of Councilman Derek Green, who is here today. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the first witnesses to testify to the bill?
Hillary Leonardopoulos, Andrea Moselle, Donna Cooper, and Brent Johnstone.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much to all of you, and especially to Ms. Leonardopoulos. Thank you so much for this breakdown, which we will try to make publicly available to everybody about data that's been prepared by the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers about environmental hazards in our schools. We really appreciate it, so thank you. If you'd like to start with your testimony, please recite your name for our stenographer.
Thank
for
you.
the record.
Good afternoon. I'm Hillary Leonardopoulos. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for being here. Thank you for holding this hearing, and thank you for your leadership. On behalf of the more than 12,000 educators in the city of Philadelphia, at the Federation, we appreciate the opportunity to testify today, and we thank you for always centering the discussion regarding our schools on a deep, unwavering commitment to bettering the lives of our young people and supporting the educators who work diligently to do just that. A budget is a reflection of priorities. As council members, you are in the midst of setting forth your priorities for the coming year, and in turn, developing your roadmap for moving Philadelphia forward. Councilmember Greens is on his desk. Is that what you're looking for? Yeah, it's on his desk. Okay. The facilities crisis, I believe, has an across-the-board consensus in being a defining component of not only the discussions around the budget, but in terms of shaping an investment agenda. At the PFT, we work every day to demand equity for our public schools. And in the poorest big city in the nation, in a school system educating largely students of color facing poverty, how we, as a union and as a city, prioritize this fight defines the work that we do. But for too many of our children and for too many communities across our city, the vision of a thorough and efficient public education remains elusive. And the facilities crisis we are currently facing is emblematic of years of systemic negligence of our children. So to enable you to take a closer look at what our students and educators are facing, we've prepared a number of data sets for you, and in them you will find overviews of the conditions in our schools, as well as closer looks at how many students and how many schools are affected by pervasive problems such as lead, asbestos, and mold. One of the metrics we utilize to document conditions is what's known as the FCI, or Facilities Condition Index, and you'll see a data set dedicated to examining how many of our schools meet the threshold for being in poor and critical, being in fair, and being in good condition. I'll share some of the statistics from our data, but before I do so, I want to note some of the good work that has taken place within this body and some of the collaborative efforts that we've undertaken with the school district. Council members Green and Squilla should be commended for authoring some of the most rigorous lead testing requirements for schools anywhere in the nation. Councilmember Gim's tireless work to install water hydration stations is making a real difference for young people. The establishment of the Facilities Task Force, as well as Philly Healthy Schools Initiative with Councilmember Green, Councilmember Reynolds Brown, and Councilmembers Blackwell being founding members is very, very significant work. The school district and the PFT have also taken a number of important steps to improve collaboration on maintenance issues, and the PFT is involving the district in efforts like the utilization of our smartphone app to document problems in schools. But the sobering reality is that there is much work to be done. Of the roughly 220 schools for which we have data, 100, excuse me, sorry, 100.
We'll get you water. Hold on.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. I know, right? 155 of those can be classified as being in poor or critical condition when using the FCI. Thank you, Councilmember, very much. Thank you. I'm sorry. So of the 220 schools for which we have data, 155 of them can be classified as being in poor or critical condition. Those 155 schools represent 88,000 students who are learning in an environment that is literally poisoning them every day. It represents thousands of educators experiencing the same. When you look at the presence of asbestos and lead, roughly 190 schools are affected. I should note that there are abatement efforts underway on both toxins, particularly surrounding lead. And additionally, the presence of asbestos in and of itself is not necessarily an indication of a problem, but when deferred maintenance has plagued our district so long, it is certainly a risk and a likely one. Those 190 schools represent more than 110,000 students learning in an environment where lead and asbestos are present. Additionally, another environmental hazard, mold, affects roughly 142 schools and in turn, more than 88,000 students. And finally, we've made estimates on some additional critical hazards and their presence in our schools. The estimates that we have made are formulated based on decades of research and observation on the part of our environmental scientist, Jerry Roseman, and I invite you to look through those on your summary sheet. This data tells us a story. It tells a story of just how pervasive the problem is, just how many students and educators are affected every day, many in irreversible ways. Surely the story of Dean Pagan, the Comley Elementary student featured in the Inquirer's Toxic Cities series, is not an isolated incident. He got poisoned by lead at his desk, in his school, and his life is forever altered, and that should horrify us all. The scope of this problem is massive, but real steps to move forward are at our fingertips. That's why the PFT convened a coalition of elected officials and other partners to coalesce around an immediate ask for facilities remediation. And with the work of our environmental scientists, the Fund Our Future's Facilities Coalition was able to use real figures to determine that for $170 million, we can abate the most pressing needs, including but not limited to water, intrusion remediation, abatement of lead and asbestos, replacement of windows, and ensuring that schools are online to be able to have air conditioning. It would help address the rodent issues that affect roughly 3/4 of our schools, and it would help us invest in good-paying cleaning jobs that would attract and retain additional staff. It's not going to solve everything. It won't bring our schools to equity, but it's a critical start. And I am encouraged that so many council members and state officials are committed to finding this money and to finding it this year. I thank you for your continued work in engaging educators, parents, and community in the process of setting forth our collective priorities. And I encourage you to look through the data and feel free to contact PFT if you have any questions or need follow-up. Thank you very much. And thank you for the water, Councilmember Green. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I did want to just let caretakers know, because we love and appreciate having so many young children here, but if you at all need any kind of quiet space for children or water, room 491 across the hall is available to anybody who needs just a quiet space for anyone who needs it. All right, thank you very much, and if you could just please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Moselle, and I'm the co-chair of the Education Strategy Team for Power Interfaith. I live in the 8th Council District. Over 30 years ago, I walked my eldest child to kindergarten at Henry School around the corner from my Mount Airy home, where we've lived since 1978. As a parent and an early childhood educator, I believe deeply in the importance of quality public schools for all of our city's children. That's why when I retired, I joined with members of more than 50 Power congregations to focus on issues that directly affect the quality of life in our neighborhoods across Philadelphia, including education, economic justice, criminal justice reform, and environmental justice. Power's education strategy is based on the privilege that the right to a great education for children of all races and ethnicities, rich or poor, is a moral imperative. So we urge you to do the right thing and support the budget package outlined in the Healthy Schools agenda. I'm here today because I believe that we are at a crossroads when it comes to Philadelphia schools. The Power Education Team joined other advocacy groups around the city in the fight for local control of Philadelphia schools and an end to the SRC. We cheered city government when they took this important step. Now, in this election season, we are entering the first budget cycle with the new school board in place, and we have an opportunity to make good on the promise of that moment. Power applauds the premise that advocacy groups and council must work together with community stakeholders to achieve key priorities for healthy schools. It dovetails with our own congregation-based organizing and our strong belief that those closest to the pain must be leaders in the solutions. Critical to the success of this work is identifying ways for districts with high poverty levels and a majority of non-white students like ours to get their fair share of funding. Power is working statewide for full and fair funding, state funding, to eliminate striking disparities and racial bias in funding between districts. Locally, it's time for council to schedule hearings around tax abatement and pass legislation to return the money to our school budgets to create safe and healthy schools. We are encouraged by the recently announced alliance between state and local elected representatives and the PFT to identify $170 million in funding to fix our facilities. That investment would be a critical step toward keeping children safe, but we cannot stop there. Power also supports calls for stronger parent and community engagement, smaller caseloads for counselors who support students, and a strong focus on safe schoolyards. As community members and advocates committed to supporting our schools, we look forward to once again cheering on City Council and the school district as you commit to making investments in these top priority environments of the communities you serve. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Donna?
Good afternoon, I'm Donna Cooper. I'm the Executive Director of Public Citizens for Children and Youth, and I'm so appreciative of the council members who are here. I wish all the council members were here, but obviously the four of you, Councilman Green, Blondell, Reynolds Brown, Blackwell, and Gim, we know you had the back of our kids, so thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to present testimony regarding the urgent needs of the students attending the Philadelphia School District. Today, as I opened the Philadelphia Inquirer, I read the full-throated pitch by Representative Turzai seeking to build public support for providing an additional $100 million in vouchers for students attending private and parochial schools for the Commonwealth. Instead, that funding should be directed to meet the crushing needs of our public schools. If this money was distributed via the school funding formula, Philadelphia public school students would stand to benefit from $25 million in new state spending. Or if all the money went to public schools, we'd be able to hire 1,250 additional teachers. Here, the overwhelming share of students are in poverty. Tens of thousands of students have a first language other than English, and far too many of our students' education has been stunted by attending an inadequately funded public school system. Our students differ dramatically from the families Representative Turzai's voucher expansion would benefit. Those families will be earning 4 times the median income in Philadelphia. As much as $284,000 for a family of 4 will benefit from this scholarship program. In contrast, this City Council made sure we are meeting, and you are meeting, our public obligation to our public school students. For the record, it's important to understand that our City Council increased the city contribution to the school district, and now as local taxpayers, we are outpacing the amount of revenue the state is contributing to one of the poorest school districts in the state. Philadelphia's local tax effort, based on the state's own calculation, is the 17th highest in the state. Philadelphia City Council is to be commended, and obviously the state must do much more. We can do more, especially when it comes to reforming the overly generous tax abatement, though, in Philadelphia, and redirecting new revenues gained to continue the progress we've made in the school district. There is one thing we must keep squarely in our sights. Just because the district is not in fiscal turmoil does not mean the district yet has the funds, infrastructure, or talent needed to deliver a world-class education. The new normal inflicted on us by the Corbett budget cuts and our just now getting back to balance is something we must all considering acceptable. And that brings me to our discussion today. The district will end this year, like last, with a positive fund balance, this year with about $160 million. Strong reserves reduce the cost of borrowing, and this year marks the 5th highest level of spending on capital improvements since 1993. And I just want to say the other 4 years were when Ed Rendell was governor. But given the urgent needs of our students, the district should expend at least half of its fund balance that it has on hand in a responsible manner for the urgent one-time facility upgrades that we know are needed to keep our children safe and promote their learning. We cannot have students in classrooms coated with cracking lead paint, moisture-soaked floors and ceilings oozing with mold, or crumbling asbestos-laden insulation. While we have the funds in our bank account, the district must accelerate the removal of environmental hazards in every school. And we are only weeks away from the dog days of June, and the heat waves in early September are unavoidable. Students can't learn when they're boiling hot. And I'm heartened to hear the district is considering adding air conditioning to certain schools. I think it would be wise for the district to work with council on a 2 to 3 year plan to outfit every building with efficient air conditioning and ventilation systems and get a lot of that work done this calendar year. Finally, where sites are ready, we need to continue the progress on rebuilding our schoolyards and making sure they're safe places for recess and fun. Amazing individuals like Elaine Lindy, who's here today, and the William Penn Foundation, and companies like Comcast and AmeriHealth have partnered with our schools to make our school guards great places and great play and learning spaces. I commend them for helping us respond to the #1 request made by elementary schools: rebuild our schoolyards. These projects are inexpensive, one-time money, and more money should be spent to get should commence with a portion of the projected year-end fund balance, which I repeat is $160 million. With respect to recurring costs, the district's budget proposal includes $6 million to expand student counseling services and an additional 50 counselors added to the staff. At the same time, the budget includes $77.5 million to pay for educational services for children who are living in institutions, $3 million more than is being spent in the current year. Often these students are sent there by the court, who orders them for delinquency or dependency places. But I'm certain the district could avoid a substantial portion of these costs if more counselors and school psychologists were hired to help students, because far too many of them suffer from heart-wrenching trauma, and we have to put the resources in place to heal and teach them, not incarcerate them. Within the funds the district have, I believe adjustments are necessary to boost these supports and give the courts, DHS, and the students the confidence needed to avoid harmful institutional placements. I commend the district for presenting a very sobering picture of what lies ahead given the state's failure to fund the schools, while at the same time imposing enormous unfunded mandates. Rising pension payments continue to take a bite out of the budget, and I support teacher pensions, but these costs are now over $300 million, and the state should be picking up more of it. For this year, the school district and next will pay an additional, compared to this year, they'll pay an additional $11 million for cyber charters, all of which are failing. In the next 5 years, 75% of all state funds received by the district will be transferred to charters for payments as their enrollment grows, consuming $1.36 billion of the district's budget. What a tragedy that these skyrocketing costs rise unabated while the Speaker of the House proposes to expand funding for private and parochial schools, neither of which carry this burden. I urge you to help Philadelphians who are exhausted of property tax increases and those who want to reduce business taxes to unite behind efforts to ensure that every available state resource is directed to education and it be delivered to our public schools via the school funding formula. Now, permit me to close by pointing out that the district is counting on $81 million by the drink tax, which was imposed when Ed Rendell was mayor, not governor. It's a correction. That beverage tax was maligned, but certainly the opposition lacked the deep pockets of the soda industries. Beloved restaurateurs claimed that they would leave the city if the tax was in fact imposed. In fact, Tui's in Chestnut Hill and Burns in Port Richmond led the chorus to tell us that the Philadelphia restaurant revival would die if that tax was imposed. They're both still here and they're doing well, and it's obvious that others have joined them to swell the ranks of employment in the restaurant sector in what is now one of the hottest restaurant cities in America. I urge council and all candidates for council to turn their back on the sweetened beverage tax naysayers. Our school district is more efficient and our students are more successful because we had dedicated tax in place to support high-quality PK. Coke just posted record earnings last week. All will be fine if this council stays the course and continues its commitment to prioritizing investments we know will pay off, those spent to care for, enrich, and educate our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have Mr. Brownstone testify, and then if there are any questions for the panel. Mr. Brownstone? Johnstone, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Council, for having me here today to speak. I want to say, before I get started, one of the main reasons why I'm here, and before I get started, I have my testimony here, written 2 pages. I'm a struggling reader. I live with dyslexia. I will kind of base my on here, but I'm not. For me, reading this in public and the anxiety I get around reading in public, I'm just going to speak from the heart here.
Thank you.
And I want to speak in 3 ways and briefly, and one as a kid who came through the Philadelphia School District, in school in the community who didn't get resources for my reading disability. Also as a person who worked in the school, not for the school district, but in the school district schools in several different positions, mostly dealing with behavioral health, therapeutic staff supports in my earlier career. Then also as a person who's now a owner of a nonprofit, started a nonprofit, Fathers Read 365, that is a community resource that engages and inspires fathers to commit to their children's education, early ed literacy, and not only their children, their community's early ed literacy. And Fathers Read 365 is actively trying to work in schools in our community because we built off of 4 pillars. Our 4 pillars are our active reading program. We do book distribution, and we create original content for early childhood years. We've published 2 childhood books, and we also do community engagement and parent engagement. Through our work, we've been able to give out 15,000 books in 1 year. Thank you.
Excellent.
7,500 of those books were literally just between our partnership with Treehouse Books and Philadelphia Reads, and the idea me and my partner created called Literacy Pop-Ups, where we went to schools, Philadelphia School District schools, and gave out books to children with the hope that every child in Philadelphia will be able to have their own home personal library. Another 7,500 of those books were given out through our partnership with United Way and the Chris Long Foundation and Read by Fourth, where we were able to have 7 book fairs where we gave out 7,500 books in the month of April through that program. And to speak to that, a lot of that was done by just us knowing people in schools and saying, hey, we have books to give you. There was no partnerships. There was no one person that we went to say, hey, who can we, this is what we want to do. How can we help? One of the reasons I'm here today to speak to what they call what is this? Let me get this right. Community connector. It is believed that a community connector should be in every school in our district, and that person is the person who connects with the community. There are so many resources in our community that can help the children in our schools that we just don't have a connection to make them. The programs are literally outside the doors. When working in schools, a lot of kids deal with self-esteem issues, and having barbers and hairstylists willing to not only do the hair for children achieving, but also teach them the skill to do the hair, but also teach them the entrepreneur skills to then go on and do something further in their lives. But how can I get into school? They won't talk to me after school. There's no one I can talk to. And eventually when I'm trying to help someone and I'm keep running up against a wall, I stop trying to help. So if we can have those people in place, a community connector that is actively engaged in that community, because what's working in North Philly and the resources in North Philly may not be the same resources in Southwest Philly. Every community is different into itself and has its own resources, and the way that we can truly connect is by using the school as that meeting place. A lot of things aren't even a cost of thing. We have programs that are already funded. We just need to be able to access to the children to actually deliver the service. And you would think that, fathers actively engaging other fathers to read with children, to be active in the school, it would be kind of easy to get in because it's noted that it's needed. When we go there, we read with children, and then we're also building fathers and families to come back and do that same work. They commit to coming back and reading to the children and be active in their daycare. We read through pre-K and through kindergarten. And I just want to say that we need the funding. We need the out-of-the-box ideas. We need to think, how can we truly move our community? The community is going to move our community. We can help ourselves, but we need the backing of the council, the people who decide where money goes. We need that. I've set up schools in September. I've set up schools in June, and just see kids have asthma attacks after asthma attack, fainting, people refusing to come to school because why will I come to school and sit in a hot building? Nothing is being learned that day because everyone is irritated. I've sat in school and see a shooting that has happened on a block that everyone knows about, that children have seen, and it's never addressed in the school. It's never, no trauma services are given to these children. And these children are literally running around the school talking about people being killed in front of their eyes. And it's like, wow, this is bad. And we need help, and we can help each other. We just have to dedicate ourselves to doing it. A community connector is one way. Knowing that we need to connect with community organizations is just a thought that we all should have and be rallying around to make our schools a better place for all of us in this city. When we make every community better, every community is better. And again, thank you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, especially Mr. Johnson. Thank you for bringing us back to that moral agenda that we desperately need, that comes right out of our communities and from our parents. There's so much that you addressed in there, you know, in particular. Thank you for all the work you've done to bring reading and books into the hands of young people. Right now, we're struggling with making sure that our library systems are even open on regular days in every single neighborhood branch, and we can't get a commitment towards that, but we're working to change it. I think we're down to less than a dozen librarians in the entire school district of Philadelphia. I know it's even lower than that. How low is it, Donna? It's small.
Wow.
It's way too small. So, and while we recognize the importance of classroom libraries, there's nothing like a full-service school library. And I think that that has become more urgent as we see that we can't, you know, we really need both and. It can't be an either or with our public libraries or with our school libraries. This is a both and. And then I really appreciate your attention to violence that's happening in the communities. We've been talking with our police department about making sure that when there is an act of violence that is happening in communities, the response from the police isn't to simply surround the school with a phalanx of police security, but actually to go into the schools and make sure that we're talking to young people, helping them navigate and negotiate any kinds of trauma that they're experiencing, or dealing with some of the questions and problems that they have when they see these things, because there's nothing that drives people towards bad decisions than feeling hopeless and helpless and angry in a moment. And so I really appreciate that. And your community connector position, the call for that is really important for us. We're down to, I think, 1 out of 4 schools has a home and school association now. So we don't have the kind of vibrancy that we ought to. Families need a way in. As you mentioned, a lot of people would like to support our schools. They need a path in. And they can't always go to the principal to do it. And not every school has a community school. So the community connector position is an entry-level way for people to connect in with their local public school, ensure that resources or that there's communication back and forth, so we can do that. So I want to thank you for that. I have questions for the other audience, but I want to turn it over to my Councilmember Reynolds Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the work that you do every day. I often say it's 9 days a week that we have to work to keep up with the demands of our children and youth. I would like to know, I'm doing multiple things up here. I have a few questions for Donna Cooper, but Mr. Brent Johnstone, how are you funded?
Well, we started with, we like to say Uber and Lyft. 80% of we just went out in the community and did the work. 80% of what we do haven't been funded. It's just 2 fathers, me and my partner, Keith Staples, and we made a commitment to our city, to our communities, that we were going to attack literacy, and eventually funding and everything that we needed to continue would come. So we just went out and did the work.
So then shall I assume from that you do or do not have a 501c3?
No, we do have a 501c3. Okay. We're also, our physical backer is UAC.
Awesome.
But just getting started, we just went out there.
The old-fashioned way.
Right, we did the old-fashioned way. We are working with several funding foundations now, capacity building, things of such. But the initial was just us.
What you're doing is awesome. I want you to confer with my staff immediately after this so I can speak to you about the Children's Fund.
Thank you. Yes, sure will.
Donna, you raised a really, for me, brilliant idea around rebuilding our schoolyards. Now, we have to recognize that the academics come first, arts and music, athletic programming if possible, libraries for sure. What I know PCCY has done in the past is the homework, where you then help us because you come with the prospective budget, some type of survey that's already been done. Have you all had a chance yet to give us some data on what that might cost if we just look strictly at the elementary schools across the city?
We have not, but that data does exist, so I'd be happy to share that with you, Councilwoman. I think it's a great question to understand the scale. So the partnerships that have been developed are we have 180 elementary schools, and you know, Rebuild, some of that is being done jointly with Rebuild and rec centers,
Okay.
right? So, yay. Some of that's being done by philanthropy, but there is a gap, and there is some documents about that, so I would definitely share that with you.
Please.
And I would also say that these fathers, I just want you to know, are also on the steering committee of the Read by Fourth campaign, and have given amazing
Awesome.
expertise to that campaign.
Very
so
good.
thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Well, what you're doing is huge, and I will say to you that to see fathers that are entrenched in neighborhoods that in many ways are empty, which are kind of role modeling, is just deeply encouraging. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you for the compliment. Thank you.
So Donna Cooper, I'll look forward to that document. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the panel for their testimony. Unfortunately, I have to go to another appointment, but I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that were stated. One, follow up on the question from Councilmember Brown. I know Elaine Lindy from the Lindy Family Foundation is here to testify about some of those additional concepts regarding providing capital dollars for school district playgrounds. That's something we've started to investigate in. My understanding, based on the research that's been done, that there is the ability to use city capital dollars for school district playground. In fact, I just met with the school district before I came down here this afternoon. The challenge is getting those dollars out of the city's capital budget, but I think there is a commitment from a number of council members who have an interest in doing that to provide some additional dollars that can leverage some of the private dollars that are going towards this effort. In addition, the Organization for the Public Trust has also invested in school playgrounds and have been working with the water department to address stormwater runoff, which is another creative way to do additional schoolyards in our schools. So hopefully that conversation will continue, and we'll have that ability to leverage those dollars as we go through the capital budget process. Also, I just want to thank those that are here for talking about the work that we need to do in reference to the Fund Our Facilities Coalition, which is something that's important in reference to how we get additional dollars, not just here at the local level, but also more importantly at the state level, to make sure that we get the dollars that we need. Over the past number of years at the local level, and I think Ms. Cooper made reference to this in her testimony, we've increased the amount of funding that we've done here in the city of Philadelphia to provide additional resources for our schools. However, our General Assembly has been, I would say, woefully inadequate, using a word that Councilmember Brown likes to use, which is woefully, inadequate in meeting the standard of our state constitution, which most people in this room know that under Article 3, Section 14, is a requirement of the General Assembly to provide their own efficient system of public education to meet the requirements for the citizens of our Commonwealth. Hopefully, the General Assembly will be able to do that. My understanding, they're going to be coming out of the budget session early this year. I'm hearing early June. They may actually finish before we do, but they do have a robust revenue at the state level. So I think that should provide all of us to put some additional pressure on our state elected officials, not just those in the city of Philadelphia, but throughout the region, because all school districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania need more funding. And I think this is an opportunity to have a broader conversation, not just here at the local level, but in Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, Lehigh Valley, Erie, Lackawanna, Elk, Potter, all the various Carbon, all the various counties throughout the Commonwealth, because local school districts are being impacted in a negative way by not getting the funding that we should be getting at the state level. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Donna?
Councilwoman Gim, would you permit me to tell Councilman Green that my schoolyard in Adair is one of the water runoff schoolyards that was a city capital water department, and so Council President Street was the person who sort of created that sort of tripartite of funding. So he obviously has the template on how to move those funds. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I had a couple of quick questions for Mr. Johnstone and especially for Donna Cooper and Hillary Leonardopoulos. Do you recall, like, at a time, Hillary and Donna in particular, do you remember a time when the school district had a similar position to the community connector position?
Well, do you want to answer for me? Yeah.
The parent ombudsmans and...
We used to have our home and we had like a parent ombudsman in the neighborhood schools with my neighborhood. All used to have somebody who was half-time that was sort of the person that you would go to if you were going to do the books, meet with the parents, manage the home and school. I don't know what that was formally called.
We had
Home and school coordinator, right, yeah.
Yeah, there was the coordinator, there was also the ombudsman, but then after that there was the sizzle.
Sizzles.
And that was a similar role. So I can go back and figure out exactly the historic job descriptions for all of those, but they were.
And do you remember when those positions went away?
The sizzles, I think that was closely correlated with the Corbett
budget cuts, yeah.
That's right,
That's when we
okay.
lost our
And
budget.
so I think part of it is that we've historically had that position there, and what we're looking for is that this is not something that is a brand-new created position, but that it has been traditionally recognized as an important position within schools. It's a loss when we don't have them, especially when we don't have alternatives, and as we're looking to fill in and get some support into our schools. So that's helpful, thank you. And then, Mr. Johnson, did you have, like, if there were a community connector position, could you list off maybe a couple of things that you think would be helpful, for example, in the work that you do that would improve services to all the different schools, not just a handful of schools where you happen to have a good relationship, but what do you think would be helpful for that position?
So I think actively engaging and seeking out resources that will benefit the children, but more importantly, the families in the community, to focus on some adult literacy, to also focus on the community businesses that are in the community and how can they support the children that basically fund their stores, the families that fund their stores, and actively engage in that community, that sector, in funding activities, resources for the schools. Also, that person having a keen awareness of what are some of the negative and positive connectors in the community. They have to be able to connect with the power players in that community and meet them where they are in order to bring them into a school that they normally have figured out how to work in their community without the school. So I think the person has to understand what that community needs and how to find that in that community or in the city overall, to bring back to the school. But I also think that actively trying to engage that business, most of these schools are surrounded by business, some more than others, but how do we engage that business sector in supporting the schools that support you?
Thank you very much. And Donna, I don't know if you had any other thoughts about how to add to that, but it's in part, I think, we're trying to convey the importance of having some type of external connector between the school and the community. So thank you, that's very helpful. And I want to thank Hillary Leonardopoulos and especially the PFT for bringing forward a fantastic document that breaks down in very clear terms the need for the reason behind the Fund Our Facilities campaign. It's my understanding that the school district will actually invest in, for the first time, about $11 to $13 million to lead abate every single elementary school by September. that would not happen had there not been so much noise on the ground, and that this had become a major priority for our city. But that being said, I think your document speaks to something greater. I mean, for one thing, if we're going to invest $13 million to lead abate our schools, we want to protect that investment by making sure there's not leaking pipes, that the humidity and the temperature isn't out of control, because that will for sure ruin a great paint job. Is that accurate to say? And can you talk a little bit more about what you think the additional priorities need to be?
So I think that one of the important things that we are developing and have been developing with the school district is improved collaboration on some of these abatement issues and improved transparency on some of the work that is being done. Our environmental scientist, Jerry Roseman, has helped to set the standard for exactly how the work is being done and some of the follow-up on it. And I know that there has been a real increase in the ability to work collaboratively on that work. We're not where we need to be, of course, but I would say that the lead is absolutely critical. But there's so much else. There are so many additional concerns when you look at the asthma rate for our students, when you look at mold in the buildings, when you look at 3/4 of the schools being exposed to, rodent droppings and things like that. I remember in my kindergarten classroom, it was like, is it a pencil, tip, or is it mouse poop? And it was the students were like, what is this, miss? And it was just, that is the reality of being an educator, and that's inhumane.
Thank you, and thank you to PFT. Thank you to this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please call the next panel?
Dr. Christina Jackson, Rochelle Nichols-Solomon, and Laurie Mazer.
Welcome, thank you. If you could self-select and state your name for the record, and you may proceed with your testimony.
Let's put you over here. Okay. So I should go first. Yeah, of course. Christina. Hello? Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council Committees on Education and Children and Youth. My name is Dr. Christina Jackson, and I'm a parent of twin kindergartners at Henry C. Lee Elementary School, representing District 3, who is also a member of our school advisory committee. I am currently an assistant professor of sociology at Stockton University in South Jersey and community and cultural advocate in West Philly. I'm a proud product of the Philadelphia School District, completing K-12 grades here. I'm happy to be here today to talk about the great things going on in my local elementary schools and how all Philadelphia students should have similar opportunities. Henry C. Lee School is a great public school, and my children and I are happy to be a part of the community, as we call it. They are our family. This is a slogan that I mostly hear from Mr. Brown, our school community liaison. Mr. Brown has cemented himself as one of the most valuable members of our school community. With support from our staff, he hosts volunteer orientations, plans field trips that open the classroom to the larger Philadelphia community, advertises local swim opportunities on Class Dojo, hosts talent shows, and provides support at English language learner meetings. Most exciting, Mr. Brown hosts the, quote, family fun night, complete with carnival games, raffles, and fun. I remember my son, Guari, wrapping me up in toilet paper for our mummy making contest hosted by Mr. Brown. I didn't win though, but that's okay. While we are happy that the Family and Community Engagement Office has expanded, we know that all schools are not as fortunate as Lee. We believe that each school deserves the support of a staff member who's committed to supporting the school community. Investing in engagement builds trust, provides support, and fosters an environment conducive to learning and building community. For so many families, but particularly Black, Brown, and immigrant families, the weight of negative school experience persists. Family engagement is linked to improved school climate and better academic outcomes for children, but it is not easy. Part-time positions will not accomplish the goal of building stronger community. Thanks to the West Philly Coalition for Neighborhood Schools, neighbors, local organizations, and grants, the Lee community has a green and sustainable playground at Lee with plants and trees and playground equipment that actually works. The playground serves as a common space for kids to gather, play, socialize in a safe and developmentally appropriate space. Lee's Playground was the location that hosted my eagerly awaited but anxiety-inducing kindergartner's play date as my children took the leap into kindergarten. Next Saturday, our playground will be, or this Saturday, our playground will be the site of our Lee School cleanup yard and yard sale fundraiser. I am eternally grateful for the West Philadelphia Coalition for Neighborhood Schools and so many community members who make this space possible, but I can't help to wonder about children in neighboring schools who don't have the same resources we do. It is difficult to explain to kindergartners why some kids have things and others don't. I think that the district must make a bold commitment in schoolyards that is guided by equity. I urge us to practice what we preach using democratic principles to promote equitable funding for our children and not allow companies and corporations via tax abatements to avoid contributing to our economic base. Why is it that, quote, economic growth, as touted through tax abatements, have come at the expense of taking away millions of dollars from our schools and neighborhoods? How is it that we subsidize the development of high-rise condominiums alongside of families and communities struggling to pay their rent due to rising property taxes? We don't think that students can walk in and through their communities and see where the city's priorities lie when their school buildings are crumbling? How about we invest in working air conditioners and stronger building infrastructures that don't possess lead and asbestos? We cannot afford to provide handouts to huge developers when Philadelphia is already economically prospering. Let's invest in our children in the environments they learn in, socialize in, and first begin to learn about who they are. Many times it is the first or second place in which they can learn to actually critically think about the communities they live in, like myself. In closing, coming from and benefiting from a higher resource public school growing up in Mount Airy, Henry, and I noticed someone mentioned Henry, I'm here to support investments in our public schools across the board. Investment in one school shouldn't be at the expense of other schools in our community. We urge you to create more community liaison positions, hire more counselors, not cut much needed staff, and invest in our playgrounds. Let's create the environment for our children we all dreamt of now, not later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Jackson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilwoman Gim and Councilwoman Blackwell, for calling this important hearing on the state of our schools, and thank you to other council members who are here. My name is Rochelle Nichols Solomon. I am a lifelong Philadelphian, and my two grandsons currently attend Powell Elementary School. They represent the fourth generation in our family attending Philadelphia Public Schools. I grew up with a hell-raising activist mom, Mamie Nichols, in South Philadelphia, who believed that good schools are the survival of community, and healthy communities support educational excellence. As such, I have been involved with school budget advocacy since the 70s. And more recently, last year, as a member of Powell School's School Advisory Council, I worked with other small schools to change district budget policies that neglected the needs of these smaller schools. As a result of our activism, budget guidelines were changed, and Powell secured an additional $50,000 in its general budget. And while we celebrate this win, we acknowledge that despite dedicated teachers and a strong principal and a healthy school and community relationship, our school struggles to make up for overall grossly inadequate school funding. Today, I'm here in council to advocate on behalf of all students in our district. We have arrived for the first time in a very long time at an auspicious opportunity to create schools that show our children that we deeply care. That means providing dedicated and targeted resources that will improve school climate and expand opportunities for quality teaching and learning. These resources represent the ones we hear about time and time again in formal and informal exchanges with parents, schools, and community members all over this city. They include supports to close the gap and build stronger bridges between home and school communities. At PAL, we are fortunate to have an excellent active parent community, but the future of our schools should not be left to luck or rely on flyers, emails, or text messages. They include adequate funds to add counselors and mental health and wellness supports for students in every school. More affluent school districts are awash with these kinds of supports. Why, with the challenges facing so many of our families, are our schools and students simply given less? And they include funding to fix our urgent facility needs, providing working air conditioners for every class, creating safe, healthy, and clean buildings, and transforming our playgrounds. The deplorable conditions in our facilities are, in a word, unacceptable. I appreciate this opportunity to speak today on the problems that represent not only educational matters, but also our issues of racial and economic justice and human rights. For too long, all over the city, the people have called for critical resources for our schools. I hope council and our new school board will stand with us, families, teachers, community, and faith members, organizers, and education advocates, and commit today to supporting these targeted investments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mazer.
Hi, my name is Lori Mazer, and I'm a parent of 2 public school students, one of whom's right over there. And I'm a member of the leadership team of both Parents United for Public Education and Philly Healthy Schools Initiative. I live in Council District Number 1 and in Ward 1, and my children attend Jackson Elementary School, which is our catchment school. So I'm excited to be here today and to speak to the council about basically the $3 billion worth of decisions you guys have to make, and to advocate for prioritizing facilities conditions at our public schools. I'm here to deliver a plea for urgency and actually a vision of optimism, 2 things that most conversations about our public schools in Philadelphia sorely lack. I've spent the last year working with the school district on the lead and paint and plaster stabilization protocol, which is as exciting and glamorous as it sounds, as part of the Philly Healthy Schools Initiative. So this working group was born out of tragedy, and talking about it is very hard. Our schools were poisoning our students and causing lifelong brain damage because our youngest and most at-risk students were eating paint chips that flaked off of their classroom walls. So everyone is aware of that now. When this tragedy was made public, there was suddenly a sense of urgency, and parent, PFT, and school district working group, they formed this working group, and real process improvements were made so that our students, teachers, and staff were safer. Additionally, City Council passed legislation that further codified that we must make sure our schools are lead safe certified. We began to do the work to make the changes because the risk to our students was real, it was documented, and it was incredibly harmful. We had urgency because the risk, and we had some optimism as additional spend was allocated to make sure that all of our schools are safe and the work is getting done. Albeit, I'd say too slowly, in my opinion, but we're making progress. So we actually had a problem, everybody found out about it, it got urgent, and then actual money and prioritization happened, which is the same thing I'm asking for today. We should not wait for more tragedies before this body, through its budget decisions and the school districts, make providing safe and healthy, clean schools to all of our students a priority. This requires money, as does everything, but we're only asking for a modest amount. And frankly, our students deserve it. with $170 million, which it sounds big in my world, sounds big in my kids' world, but with the budget decisions y'all have to make, it's a small amount. You could vastly improve our school cleaning staff and equipment, begin to work on some of the much needed repairs, and start to create a learning environment that our students need and deserve. Mouse droppings, chipping paint, asbestos, and mold send the message that our kids don't deserve anything better. We need to show them that we recognize that we have a bare minimum duty to them to provide safe, clean, and healthy learning environments. Additionally, I want to remind you to act urgently. We are fast approaching the hottest time of the year in Philadelphia, and many of our schools are not equipped with functioning, adequate HVAC systems. And I know there are teachers and students here who experience that. We want to at least double the number of working AC units in our school and help to maintain and replace the ones that are no longer working. We also need to develop a comprehensive plan for accomplishing the goal of air conditioning in every classroom that needs it, including performing all the electrical upgrades that are needed over the next 3 years. So urgent action, get our schools and our classrooms prioritizing cool for this season, and then make a priority of fixing this in the long term. We should immediately engage in joint planning efforts to figure out where to start, what schools and what rooms are the most critical need of air conditioning, and how to move forward in the most equitable and efficient way possible. Don't wait to read about it again on the Inquirer. Don't wait for us to come to you and tell you that our kids are sweating in 105-degree classrooms and act surprised, because we're telling you now. Don't further increase the inequity we see in our schools by making something this parents have to fundraise for, right? We read an article about a school that got a library because their parents have means. We read, I experienced in my own school that we were finally able to add air conditioning because we had some parents with means. All of our kids deserve these basics. And I promise you that if we act urgently and with proper input and oversight from parents and teachers and the PFT, this council and others, we can show that there is plenty to be optimistic about in our schools. I've seen this happen already. I truly believe, I actually believe it, that we can make things better. And I believe that my requests and the requests of my fellow folks who are speaking today are realistic and attainable. But as a parent, a taxpayer, and an advocate, I need this group of folks in this room to start acting with the urgency as if it is your child who is being poisoned by lead, your child who is sweating in a 100-degree classroom, and your child who has mouse droppings in their cubby. Our students will notice when we start to make them a priority. And if we act with urgency and make real measurable change, then we will all start to share the optimism that I have, that our schools can be a source of pride for all of us. There are no silver bullets. The path to transformation is a long game. We can walk and chew gum, and that means we can push for more counselors, better schoolyards, and true investment in community engagement, all at the same time.
Thank you. Councilwoman Blackwell.
Thank you. I want to say a special thanks to all of you. We work closely with Powell School, always have. And Lee School will always be special to me. It's where I met the late, great Lucian Blackwell when I was teaching his children there as a school teacher. And of course, we are very proud of all that's happening now with Lee School. Your good principal as well, and all the attention that's been happening after a long time. So thank you all very much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge all three of you for your heroic work at all of your at all your individual schools, but also because you're advocating for every school. That is tremendous to do. I want to thank Rochelle Nichols-Solomon for the work that you did for the Small Schools Coalition to bring a group of small schools, populations of under 300, is that right? To come together, because when we have a school system where we allocate resources based on student population, that is not going to make any sense, because what we actually need to do is ensure that every single school opens up with a principal, a vice principal, a nurse, counselors, librarians, no matter what the size, because every child needs those things. And thanks to the work of the Small Schools Coalition, a number of our small schools received a stipend to offset the costs of being too small to qualify for a lot of those additional resources. And I also want to thank you for your work on the Pay Up PPA Coalition and holding the parking authority accountable. A quick note for folks in the room, when we first came in 2016, the Parking Authority was projected to give us the lowest amount, $3 million a year, and thanks to the work of the Pay Up PPA Coalition, they're going to give us the most we've gotten, but it's still not enough.
Not enough, that's right.
So thank you. And for Lori and Christina, I'm curious, could you talk a little bit about, do you have enough cleaners in your schools? Do you know, can you speak to whether you are fully cleaned or whether the schools feel really clean in the morning? This is one of the areas that we're trying to just make clear for our understanding.
So at our school, I know because we had our meeting about lead in a classroom where we watched our kindergarten teachers sweeping up, because they eat in classroom in kindergarten, sweeping up all the food from the day before. So I think we're fully staffed, but it's still an inadequate number, and we're out a cleaner every couple weeks. And so we tend to have teachers who are staying after hours and cleaning up our schools. And it means that our building engineers and the other folks aren't spending time on issues like water intrusion and things like that, because they're having to deal with classrooms that are unclean.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Christina?
Yes, so we also do have a school nurse and 2 counselors. And I would say that that our school is pretty clean, but we also do struggle, especially with the classrooms. And I always thought it was interesting, since, I'm new at this and we just started in kindergarten, that the school supply list includes all these things that have to do with cleaning the room, which is way different than when I was in school. And I think that is a big sign that now this burden is being put more on school teachers. So, I have twins, so times that by 2, so I have to come up with 4 Lysol containers, hand sanitizer galore. So I just think that says a lot also about the burden that's now put more on the teachers as well.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And do you recall, you have 2 kindergartners, and this is one of them. Is this Kaya?
Other one's in aftercare. This is Kaya.
Hi, Kaya. Thank you. And did you lose any days this year because of the heat wave at the beginning of the year?
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we lost I think maybe 2 days. I know there are other leap parents
even
here.
more, right?
Yeah.
I think it was almost 4 or something. I mean, one of the things we're trying to make is that air conditioning isn't exactly a luxury. We have school systems in the suburbs that get to start 2 weeks ahead of Philadelphia school kids and get that kind of 2-week head start on their learning, and we all take the same state test in April. Yeah. So for us to get delayed for 2 weeks and to lose 2 weeks of learning time simply because our schools are too hot is actually a very serious learning issue. If we care about test scores and we care about learning, then we need to see air conditioning as part and parcel of academic success as much as it is about physical comfort and anything. So thank you to this panel. Thank you, Kaya, for being here today, and thank you to all 3 of you.
Thank you.
Will the clerk please call the next panel?
Jessica Wei, Lakeisha Dots, Minghui Wu, and Jason Hu.
We are so excited to have you here. Thank you so much. So if you could introduce yourselves, you can self-select.
Okay. The students are nervous. I'm going to go first.
We understand.
My name is Jessica Wei, and I'm with the Caucus of Working Educators. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Lakeisha Dots, and I'm with the Philadelphia Student Union.
Hello. Hello.
My name is Jason, and I'm from Vietlead.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Minghui. I'm from Asia American United.
Thank you very much. We're excited to hear from you. Jessica, did you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today on the state of our public schools. My name is Jessica Way, and I'm a teacher in the School District of Philadelphia and an organizer with the Caucus of Working Educators. And I'm here today because when the Toxic Schools report came out from the Philadelphia Inquirer, I was shocked by the extensive lead paint and asbestos being detailed in my own building. I had no idea. We knew there was flaking paint all over our building, especially on the 3rd floor, where we have suffered the most from water damage from an ailing roof. We didn't know it was lead paint flaking freely from holes in the ceiling, from window sills and from walls, coating the balcony in our auditorium, covering the coffee pot on a colleague's desk, lining the table where another colleague stored her breast pump. I also want to tell you something else about one of the hallways on our 3rd floor. In the past 4 years, we have had multiple teachers on one wing of the 3rd floor develop cancer. One of those teachers, the one who has been on the 3rd floor the longest, is now experiencing cancer for the 2nd time in the past 5 years. Having survived brain cancer, she was recently diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. 3 of the teachers are under the age of 50. Cancer incidence for women under the age of 50 is only 1 in 18. The cancer risk for women who taught on this one hallway of my building is closer to 50%. New research from NIH has documented a connection between lead exposure and cancer. These women have children. One has grandchildren. They're important members of our school community and their families, and I am thankful that every one of them can call themselves survivors. It's important that we take these stories seriously. It's important that we value the people who spend every day in Philly schools, the students, the staff, and the teachers. That's why over 2,500 PFT members signed a petition stating that we wanted the school district to immediately remediate all of the lead hazards in all of our buildings. We want temperature control and rodent control in our schools, some of the primary triggers of childhood asthma, a major cause of absenteeism. And we want the money to come from those most able to pay it by ending the tax abatement and asking mega nonprofits like Penn to do the right thing, stop acting like they're a real nonprofit, and pay payment in lieu of taxes. It's Teacher Appreciation Week, yes. And I don't want coffee or a mug. I want the school district to get all the money it needs to fix our schools so we can have the best shot at a healthy environment and my school can have a cancer-free school year.
Thank you. Hello. Hi, Lakeisha.
Hey, all right, so I would like to start off by thanking Councilmember Helen Gim and your office for organizing this hearing. My name is Lakeisha Dyson, and I am a senior at Paul Robeson High School. Thank you. I am also a member of the Philadelphia Student Union and have been working with other members on raising the awareness of the challenges that have come from having police in our schools. Over the past several years, our organizations have led trainings for school police officers, led the work to create the second school police officer complaint system in the country, and have supported time and time again students who have been assaulted by SPOs. We have testified and shared our research with elected officials and decision makers in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, and Washington, D.C., all with the same message. If you want to make schools safe, you can't simply rely on options that are not proven to work and often make the ability for brown and black students harder. Some students would say they feel safer, which we understand. However, if you ask most people why, they would speak about the feeling. This does not explain what is actually being done and does not include the harm caused that many students are carrying. We have shared this several times, and the policy has strengthened school policing, school policy, including the recent passing of Policy 805, which would make metal detectors and school police mandatory in all schools. Another problem caused by this is the $29 million spent on school policing and security. In a district that does not receive the full amount of money needed to manage the schools in Philadelphia, how we spend the money is even more important. Right now, there are still 342 officers in our schools and only 267 school counselors. That means the student to counselor ratio is 1 counselor for every 395 students, which is not at the recommended ratio of having 1 counselor to every 200 students. In the school district's guides to the budget, they noted that they assign counselors based on the 1 counselor to every 950 students ratio. The district has been hiring other low-level staff like college advisors that only do some of the work of counselors because it costs less. But counselors do a lot more and need to be invested in. Instead of hiring necessary staff such as counselors, nurses, and restorative justice coordinators who can all work as a team to provide the safety needed, the district continues to prioritize spending on SPOs without even studying how effective their officers are being. It is a choice to spend millions on school police salaries instead of taking a hard look at how to improve school environments. We believe that it is important to send a strong message that the safety of students is being taken seriously and that this includes addressing the harm caused by police officers in our schools. I feel safe when I know that myself and other students are respected and there are adults in our corner supporting our well-being. We believe that another plan for safety can and should be developed, but this will take time and money from the budget to make it possible. We are demanding the City Council to follow these policy recommendations on this year's school budget. A 50% decrease in funding for school police officers, an increase in guidance counselors to meet the recommended ratio of 250 students per guidance counselor, an increase in school psychologists to meet the recommended ratio of 700 school psychologists per student, an increase in school nurses to meet the recommended ratio of 750 school nurses per student, an increase in the number of professional support staff who are trained to de-escalate conflicts between students and student-teacher conflicts. And last but not least, all new funding for any school police or security infrastructure must be submitted along an assessment of current spending, evaluation of effectiveness, study of potential harm it may cause, and options for alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lakeisha. Great job. Thank you so much. Jason? Welcome. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Hu. I'm a student leader from Viet Lead, and I live in the 2nd District. I'm currently a junior at Furnace High School, a severely underfunded public school in South Philadelphia. Today, I'll be asking City Council to support Council Member Helen Jim's budget packet to fund Philly schools, and this is why. A debate about where public money should go is a debate that people have been having for a long time. And I believe that our school money should go towards repairing facilities and funding essential resources for students. Why so? School should be an environment where students can feel safe and be 100% focused on learning. But based on what I've experienced, the school environment that I'm learning in does not provide what students need in order to learn. Coming from a different school environment in Indonesia barely a year ago, I was surprised with the condition of furnace building. There is nasty mold on the walls, chipping paints everywhere I go, and we suffer from sitting in really cold classes in the winter and really hot classes during the summer. Just try to imagine learning in a really cold class because the heater doesn't work properly. Many students refuse to take notes because their hands are so cold. During the summer, many students can't focus because of the severe temperatures in the classrooms. Some of the issues in the public school can actually cause death. I know a teacher who developed asthma because of toxic air in their classroom. This toxic school environment is a distraction and not conducive to learning. Coming from Indonesia, I plan to focus in school and eventually attend college. But instead of focusing on my education, I have to be concerned with my health in this toxic environment. My friends and I often ask each other, will you make it out alive and healthy by the time we graduate? Sadly, I know Furnace is not the only school that experiences these toxic conditions, and we need fundings to fix it. Instead, the City Council has allowed developers to profit at the expense of the school children through a 10-year tax abatement. I demand that every single student in Philly have a healthier and better environment to learn. I'm asking the City Council to vote in support of the budget package proposed by Councilperson Helen Gim, and the tax abatement, and demand the school district to prioritize fixing the schools in their budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Hi, my name is Min Hui. I'm a Furnace High School graduate, a current CCP student, a youth organizer with Asian Americans United Chinese Youth Organizing Project. I live in 2nd District. I living through a harms of budget cut that happen year after year. My school ceilings regularly leak. My teacher will put bucket on the floor to collect rainwater, while we will expect to go on learning as if this was normal. Last year, Plumbos roof fell in. Our youth and noise high complained about the extreme heat they are expected to learn in because of lack of air conditioning in many classrooms. This was not a learning environment. We are treated like second-class citizens, expect to learn in buildings that we are harmful to our health. I came to this country 7 years ago. I, like many of my peers, entered high school without any knowledge of English. The school system was totally new to me, but I received little help to navigate this system. When immigrant students come to this country and start school, we rely on each other. We rely on ones with the stronger grasp of English to interpret for the rest of us. Our peers help us find our first class, figure out how to choose classes, and what's the SAT, SATR. We become each other's guider. This work should not be on the shoulders of students. We need community liaisons that have the cultural knowledge to connect our school, diverse communities to the school. My mom does not speak any English. She, like many immigrant parents, does not contact the school because she is afraid of the language barrier. She works 7 days a week. She has no time to come to school for meetings, but she does want the information. She want to be a part of my education, but has too many barriers in the way. We have a dedicated bilingual counselor who reaches out our families. Not every school has this resource. Each community has different needs and different barriers to accessing the school. Community school liaisons can play the role of reaching out to those communities to bring in school community connection. I'm a college student. Against all odds, I say this because I had a hard time tracking down my college counselor. My senior year, I remember tracking down for 2 weeks for my school transcript. I finally find him after 1 week. He said he will send it out. It did not send. I spent another week tracking him down. It wasn't that he wasn't dedicated. It was that he had so many ways he had way too many students and not enough time. I rely on help from AAU and other peers, FAFSA application, and to write another peers to navigate the college process, to know the deadline to complete the very complicated FAFSA application, and to write and to add my essay. I have a peer that was rejected from Temple because he was missing basic applicant information. He is an ESOL student as well the actual help with this process. This struggle with the college process isn't just for immigrant students. It's a school-wide. Many of my friends who as an immigrant student also struggle to find the support they need with college application process. Beyond college support, counselors are also supposed to be there for our emotional help. I still see that our high school counselors are so busy with their student loan, college application, and other things. They have no time for us. As individual people, we all left to find our own way to cope. I'm here today to ask that this city start to invest in us. In students against, I support a healthy school agenda, investment in community school, liaisons, in counselors, and a safe and sound school building. We are the next generation. We are your future, and we are worth of investment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to Lakeisha, Jason, and Minghui for being here today and for your incredibly important stories. Just a really quick question, Minghui. So you said you had a friend who wasn't able to complete, who was an ESOL student but wasn't able to complete their college application, is that right?
Yeah.
And do you think it was partly because they struggled to get access to their college counselor?
Yes, because the counselor is too busy with so many high school senior students, and the example is I tracking hand down 2 weeks and to find him to send the school transfer to the college, and it's too late to reach him to send the school transfer to the college. Mm-hmm. And the Temple did not accept me to the college.
And do you remember what year that was? How long ago was that, do you think?
2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was a very serious year, and I think we actually saw college applications go down because, in part, we didn't have enough counselors in schools, and that's a very, very serious consequence. So we're certainly going to be appreciative of, this is partly why we want young people to speak out. You bring a totally different perspective to the room, an important one. It's about walking through schools when you're 12, 15, or 17, or 19 years old. It's really important that we hear from you. So thank you to all three of you for taking the time to come today. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the final panel?
Elaine Lindy, Rebecca Puyuro, Eileen Duffy, and Kendra Brooks.
And again, I want to thank everybody for having come out here today. I think when this room is packed with people, it really makes a difference. Hearing from the voices of educators and family members, knowing that this is a top priority. We want to make sure that your voices are heard as clearly and loudly as possible as we go into our school district hearing. So thank you everybody again for being out here. Thank you to this wonderful panel. and you can self-select. And if you just introduce your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Hi. I'm Elaine Lindy. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. This is said in lockstep with the values and priorities of PCCY, is the program called Fiesta Schoolyards. This is a new program started last fall with the first Fiesta Schoolyard opening at Emlyn Elementary School. Fiesta Schoolyards brings colorful, high-impact schoolyard improvements to public elementary schools in the city. Out of 168 schools, 100 have few or zero play amenities in the schoolyard, basically parking lots. You have an expanse of cracked asphalt hardscape surrounded by a chain link fence. What do you think this kind of bleak environment signals to our school children? What does it show them about how much the world cares about them? Let's say they're having a bit of trouble with multiplication. All they need to do is look around and then ask themselves, why bother? You may wonder how many children are affected in these 100 schools. Total enrollment is 100,000 students. That's half the population of Center City, Philadelphia. It's a lot of humanity. There are just 3 minutes provided here, so allow me to briefly describe how Fiesta Schoolyards offers a high-impact, colorful, engaging, quick solution. We choose play options that are quick, easy, and fun. If a play option is fun but not quick and easy, we don't do it. We only choose options that are quick, easy, and fun. Since each of the play options has been pre-approved by the School District of Philadelphia, and because we let each school community choose from among a variety of play options that they want, up to 400 points using a point system, a new Fiesta Schoolyard is up and done in months instead of years. We have 4 opening at the end of May. On May 28th, Elwood Elementary, Anna B. Day, May 29th, Pennypacker, May 30th, and Edmonds, June 3rd. These were started over the winter. Typically, a new playground will take years. In addition, a new playground will run hundreds of thousands of dollars, $1 million, more than $1 million. It can pitch up to $2 million if you can believe that. A Fiesta Schoolyard is $100,000. Of the $100,000, the Lindy Foundation, I'm Elaine Lindy, and I speak along with the voices of my brothers, Alan Lindy and Frank Lindy. Among us, we run a real estate business. Lindy Foundation is a nonprofit organization. We're pledged 20% of that $100,000 for all 100 of these schools, but we need help. We're getting help. We seek sponsors, and we've been getting sponsors at 50%. So we bring to the city 70% of $100,000, already a very scalable number. We bring it to the city, but our sponsors need to know that the city has some stake in the game. We won't be able to attract our sponsors without city support of $300,000. We've come to seek for 10 Fiesta Schoolyards next year. Of these 100 schools, we're figuring 10 per year for 10 years to do them all. The first year is this upcoming fiscal year, where we seek $300,000, that's $30,000 per Fiesta Schoolyard, the city's 30% role. Or put another way, for the same price, the city would be lucky to get 1 playground. They'll realize 10. And we'll manage the process. 8 council members have already expressed their support of this supplemental funding ask. My thanks primarily Councilmember Helen Gim, as well as Councilmember Derek Green here earlier, and Councilmember Brian O'Neill, Cheryl Parker, Mark Skrilla, and Al Taupenberger for their written letters of support delivered to Council President Darrell Clark of our $300,000 ask. Thank you also to Council members Cindy Bass and Alan Dahm for their verbal support, to be followed by written support as well. Fiesta Schoolyards is the sort of initiative PCCY supports in their vision of supporting healthy children in the neighborhoods of Philadelphia. Again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak. So please, I appeal to the City Council to grant Fiesta Schoolyards the modest $300,000 that will unlock an additional $700,000 in outside funds and transform 10 bleak and empty school wastelands into fun and vibrant Fiesta Schoolyards next year. This body can make it happen. Let's signal to the children of Philadelphia that they matter after all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elaine. Rebecca? Yeah.
Greetings. My name is Rebecca Poyero, and I'm the parent of 2 students in Philadelphia Public Schools. They graduated from Cookwissahickon Elementary School and currently attend Masterman. I was on the Home and School, the School Advisory Council, and the president of the Green Committee at Cookwissahickon. Our family lives in the 4th Council District, and I've been an advocate for public education in our city for the past 8 years, during which critical services were slashed and many needs deferred. Those cuts had multiple effects, and one of them was that we were all pushed dangerously close to accepting unacceptable conditions. I believe, and I always have believed, in public schools as places of hope and possibility, and I've testified before this body and lobbied Harrisburg throughout all these years on the importance of funding for the adequate numbers of teachers, counselors, and nurses in our public schools that our kids need and deserve. But I'm here today to focus on another critical issue that was deferred. Keeping our schools clean and in a basic state of repair must be a focus and a non-negotiable priority for the health and safety of the children who attend them, for the health and safety of the teachers and staff who work in them, and for the health and safety of the communities of which schools are a part. Our city needs schools that are clean and in good repair, where problems that arise are dealt with promptly before leaks cause damage or mold, for example. Environmental threats such as mold, dust, rodents, lead, and asbestos should be dealt with safely and promptly. The buildings should have adequate fresh air and ventilation and a temperature that is neither too hot nor too cold. The city, as well as the school district, is responsible for maintaining a healthy and safe physical environment inside and outside school buildings. In addition to addressing emergency physical plant issues, which are critical, the school district also needs funds dedicated to the ongoing work of keeping schools clean, and this is overdue. They need funds to improve maintenance in a systematic way, including preventative repairs. They need to be able to hire a sufficient number of custodians and provide the support and equipment necessary for their work. There needs to be a system of garbage pickup and disposal, the same way we need it for the city, by the way. And this cannot be deferred any longer. We recognize making all of the needed improvements to modernize our schools is challenging, but keeping them clean, fixing things like exposed piping that gets hot enough to burn a child, none of that should be a challenge we can't address. Dedicating funds and training staff and hiring contractors who can fix paint without exposing kids to lead dust, that shouldn't be that hard. That also needs that the district needs improved information about the basic issues at each school, and there should be an assessment of each school that looks at lead, asbestos, exposed or hazardous maintenance issues, including exposed hot air piping, leaks, clogs, and cleaning capacity, and success in the building. There should be an annual update about the basics, cleanliness, the basic state of repair, and actions that have been taken and ongoing needs. Collecting comprehensive facilities information is a critical goal, which will take some time. However, the district should start now by having principals and building engineers complete preliminary site assessments. While they might not be able to identify lead dust, they can identify peeling paint and paint dust or deteriorated pipe insulation, which would then provide the district the information it needs to do further evaluation. And there needs to be a parent, staff, and community engagement district-wide and at the school level. There should be a stakeholder task force on facility issues that models the lead task force. And it should include independent experts and professionals, including academic experts, not just experts for hire, and parents, teachers, and community members. Again, I know our schools have many challenging issues which require resources, but this one is also critical for our city's health and well-being, and it's doable. Getting each school clean and in basic repair should be a minimum and not an aspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Eileen?
Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Duffy. I'm a 24-year veteran school nurse from the Academy at Palumbo. I'm a lifelong Philadelphian. I live in East Oak Lane in the 9th Councilmatic District. Today I come to speak on behalf of the certified school nurses of the district. We nurses have attained the respect of our community with regard to advocating tirelessly for full-time nurses in our schools. We recently spoke to the Inquirer, passionately sharing our professional expertise with regard to immunization compliance in the district. And so it is no surprise that we want to weigh in with our support for the additional needs in the upcoming school budget. We take this moment to speak on behalf of next year's budget and to imagine more than the status quo, knowing full well that the gains we're imagining today are minimal expectations in school districts right outside of our city. The measures being requested today in the Healthy Schools Initiative would delight every school nurse in this city, as they would go a long way towards supporting the physical and mental health needs of our students. Imagine if our counseling and mental health supports were so robust that nurses could collaborate seamlessly with no delay to support students with mental health issues. At present, schools do not have the 250 to 1 student to counselor ratio recommended by the counselor's professional organization. And while the nurses are happy to be full-time in every school, we still have some large schools which are managing with a student-to-nurse ratio far above the 750 to 1 ratio recommended by the National Association of School Nurses. Imagine if our schools were modernized with air conditioning and temperature that supported learning. If asthmatic students' health conditions weren't worsened by the settings in which they learned. Imagine if learning did not cease due to buildings that are too hot for any teaching and learning to happen. Imagine if nurses could reach out to an in-house trusted community liaison to help us educate our families about the current nationwide immunization crisis and to support them in getting timely mandated vaccines. We school nurses are united and vocal in our advocacy of a budget that prioritizes the health and well-being of all our students in each and every school. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. As we ask Kendra Brooks to speak, could I ask Maura McInerney to come forward if she's still here? Thank you. Kendra, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kendra Brooks. I'm an activist, and I want to first say that I stand in solidarity with everything everyone else came to say today. But today I'm speaking as a parent, a North Philadelphia public school parent. I have 4 daughters, all came through the public school system. I have 2 currently in the public school system, one with Edward T. Steele, and the other one is at Science Leadership Academy at Bieber. So I wrote out my speech. The health of our schools should be paramount. Not only the physical health of our school buildings, but the mental and emotional health of our children. We need a budget agenda that prioritizes the health of our school community. Our children face trauma at an alarming rate. Gun violence is plaguing our streets, and our children are suffering in the aftermath. The district just made a huge investment in surveillance equipment, metal detectors for 3 schools. However, there are only 1 counselor for every 392 students, while the American Counselor Association recommends 250 to 1 ratio. It is imperative that the investments in our schools include professional support staff that is available daily to help our children navigate trauma, emotions, and feelings that they might not be able to verbalize. We need help to keep our children safe by improving the quality of education, providing appropriate resources, and assessing the overall school environment. Research has revealed that security guards and metal detectors are consistently ineffective at keeping students safe and actually associated with more incidents of school disruption. There are more than enough police in our schools working to keep everyone safe, but the mental health and social well-being of our students has not been prioritized. Trauma-informed education, culturally competent curriculum, restorative practices are sound investments that have been proven to improve school climate and support healthy school communities. The foundation of the school community is strengthened with strong parent leadership, professional support staff, and consistent access to resources to help our children succeed. We have seen positive effects of this with Friends of groups, home and schools associations, PTAs, but primarily in more affluent areas of the city. As a parent leader, I saw firsthand how my daily investment in my schools, assisting the counselor and climate staff, was crucial. I spent time talking to parents about truancy issues, discipline policy, and how to access necessary support needed for services. After volunteering 20-plus hours per week as a school counselor liaison, small group therapist for 2 years, I had to return to full-time work. Like most families in Philadelphia, the ability to commit this number of unpaid hours into the school and maintain a household is impossible. The district budget should include dedicated funds to support a well-paid union position to build a bridge between schools and community that is mandated at every Title I school. I have had conversations about pathways out of poverty with union leaders and city administration. The ultimate goal is to improve the success of students, and the best way to do so is by supporting the entire family. Providing well-paying union jobs to community members as a means to build a bridge between schools and the community could not only enhance the quality of the relationships between the schools and the community, but it could also serve as a bridge between the community and broader municipal services, including law enforcement. As a public school parent and a community leader, an investment in our schools must include a community connector position, an evaluation of the needs and identification of the priorities of services and supports to strengthen Philadelphia schools. And I also want to add that I have been that community connector. You know, through my advocacy, I have been the one. We had gun violence, I think it was May 6th. It was a shooting on Germantown Avenue at a community cleanup. It was a Saturday. By Sunday morning, I text B. Coates, who's our assistant superintendent, and asked for support, that we need emergency services for our kids on Monday because kids were outside cleaning, and they actually saw someone murdered that day. We could not get the building opened and this meeting set up until Thursday. This meeting was formulated and planned by parents, myself, Nikki Bagby, and Eric Marsh. We worked really hard with the district to make this happen, but we all worked full-time jobs, and we prioritized it. It wasn't the school that prioritized it. So we need to make sure we have people in position to do that. Both myself, Nikki Bagby, and Eric Marsh worked in that position voluntarily for years. I have kids that have been in Philadelphia public schools for 20 years, and so does Nikki Bagby and Eric. And we have invested our life into supporting our schools, but we also need to support our families. And we're not the only parents like that. There are parents around the district that would love to support our schools. But financially, we cannot feed our families and invest that commitment every day. So this is something that's like crucial to all of these services that we're asking for. We tried to get a park at our school, like the woman spoke earlier, and we got so many roadblocks because just accessing the bureaucracy with the school district as a parent without a title, you know, it was really hard. So this is something definitely we need to continue to push for, because I know for a fact many parents in my community in North Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, and Southwest Philadelphia, we want to be a part of our school's education, but we have to prioritize putting food on the table and ensuring we have a place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kendra. Mara? I'm going to have a quick question for Eileen.
Okay, when you're done.
After Mara, go ahead. Oh, Councilman, did you want to?
Yes, I wanted to say that I'm sorry, Ms. Lindy, that you didn't hear from me. I want to commend you and your family charitable foundation for what you're doing, and we're honored and proud that you're doing this.
And
Certainly, we support it.
And you will herald in 3 of our dedications.
Thank you.
Today. We look forward
Thank
to
you.
that. Thank you so
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you, Maura.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to address City Council today regarding important opportunities that we have to improve schools and to provide more equitable opportunities for all of our children. My name is Maura McInerney, and I'm the legal director at the Education Law Center. That's a statewide legal organization dedicated to ensuring that all children have a quality education. We focus on the most educationally at-risk students, students with disabilities, students who are English language learners, students of color, students living in poverty. And over our 45-year history, we handle approximately 1,200 calls a year from parents and from students. So my testimony today stems from the Education Law Center's experiences in handling these cases, both at an individual and systemic level. We need critical investments in our schools to ensure the safety of all of our students, the health of all of our students, to promote student learning, and to improve school climate. Specifically, the district's budget must prioritize investing in school counselors, ensuring the safe and healthy environments of our schools, increasing parent engagements, stopping the banning of parents from schools, supporting evidence-based services that will target bullying and harassment in schools, and also targeted funding for our most at-risk students, including pregnant and parenting students. School counselors, as we all know, play a critical role in supporting students and communities. Currently, as we've heard, the district employs 322 counselors to serve approximately 127,000 students. Caseload distribution is vastly disparate, leaving some counselors serving as many as 949 students. And in many cases, students with the greatest needs, those in the highest poverty areas with significant levels of trauma and other mental health needs, receive the least resources and the least help. The ratio must change to 250 to 1, as has been discussed. The district also needs to make a significant investment in other ways to improve our school climate, including addressing bullying and harassment, which has become more prevalent in our schools across the district in recent years. This is illustrated by a federal administrative complaint filed by the Education Law Center in 2017, which alleged a systemic failure by the district to promptly and appropriately address pervasive and severe bullying of students with disabilities. The United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights opened an investigation and recently released a resolution agreement with the district which acknowledges violations of federal disability rights laws and directs the district to reform its policies and practices. Funding is needed for evidence-based bullying prevention strategies and interventions, for training of teachers and staff to recognize the signs of bullying, to conduct an effective bullying investigation, and to provide students the supports and services they need, including engaging in district-wide data collection and analysis. Other investments to improve school climate include supporting trauma-informed learning, racial bias training for staff and administrators, and school-wide positive behavioral supports. And finally, we ask that the district should invest in providing targeted support for at-risk student populations, including the unique and significant needs of pregnant and parenting students in the district, which currently account for 30% of dropouts overall. As many as 70% of teen mothers in Philadelphia drop out of high school. Students who are pregnant and parenting are more likely to repeat a grade, more likely to exhibit lower performance on standardized tests, and to disengage in school. We have engaged in a 2-year study at the Education Law Center, and we have learned that students are often out of school for 4 to 6 weeks following the birth of a child, and typically during that time they receive absolutely no academic instruction and do not connect to teachers. They are not eligible to apply for homebound instruction until 30 days of being out of school. Funding is needed to ensure that these students receive the academic support they desperately need while out of school, and transition support upon re-entry to school to make decisions about school placement so that they are not diverted to accelerated programs. They also need to receive accommodations in school to breastfeed upon returning to school, as well as access to childcare. Providing these critical investments will change the lives of 2 generations of children. The children born to teen mothers lag behind their peers academically. They score lower on standardized tests. They are far more likely to drop out. And research indicates that they are 9 times more likely to be poor and on welfare. We urge City Council to ask how the current district budget will support these students and will address these school climate issues. We also strongly support the Healthy Schools agenda to ensure that we have more school counselors, access to mental health and wellness resources in our schools, that we are building bridges to parents and to our communities, and that we ensure that all of our facilities and all of our schools are healthy environments for our children and for our teachers. Thank you for this opportunity to address these important issues.
Thank you. Thank you very much to this panel. A couple of quick things I want to reiterate. Thank you, Elaine Lindy, and to your family for your investments around our public school playgrounds. They're so important, and I've been to a couple of openings of them, and they're joyful, and play is part of childhood development, so it's really essential. And then, Eileen, I know you were mentioning that you feel like we worked hard to get a nurse in every single public school. And that assignment had not existed before. So are you saying, though, that you feel that nurses are still covering multiple schools, or we need more nurses than 1 nurse per school?
There are some schools. I'm in a good position in my school, but I am in a special admission school. I have a little over 1,000 students, so that doesn't meet the National Association of School Nurses. However, the quality of my school, it's a special admission school, I can manage, and I'm a veteran nurse. A school such as Lincoln High School that might have 1,200 or 1,300 students, they have a 2-day additional nurse. So we have a full-time nurse and 2 days additional. You're still with 3 days of a nurse covering really a comprehensive neighborhood schools that has high needs. So a school like that is a school that really needs more than we have allocated.
Okay.
And it's not a lot of schools. I could get you more details, but that's what I was referencing.
Could you get us the details?
Absolutely, and I really appreciate your asking for some more clarity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, thank you. And Kendra, thank you so much for you, Eric, and Nikki just stepping forward in that terrible moment at Steele. It's a reminder, though, that we really have not figured out a way to have a coordinated policy, because it is shocking. It happened right near school grounds during the community cleanup, and to not have a matching program in the school immediately is alarming to me. And it's something that we've been kind of talking about, so I think it would be important for us to figure out what that looks like and to have better conversations about that. It would also be really helpful if you maybe wrote up a little bit, especially if you had recommendations, if you, Eric, and Nikki could do that, and then we could submit it back to the Committee on Public Safety and Gun Violence in particular, because we had this exact discussion with our police department and what their plans are, and we need to do that with the school district, so thank you. And then for Maura, we really do need to follow up, but you are telling me that if a student in a public school has a child, there's effectively like no maternity plan or no maternity care plan that goes into effect on the school district end. There's no policy that exists. There's no like healthcare rights, or there's no they're not immediately engaged in a cyber school or something, or home education.
So what the
for
policy
support?
currently states, which was recently updated in April, actually, of last year, was that they need to apply for homebound instruction, which they will only be eligible for if they have been out for 30 days and can demonstrate that they must remain at home pursuant to a doctor's order. And the fact is that the majority of students who have children are out of school 4 to 6 weeks, and some of them more. So they fall drastically behind. In addition, many many youth underscored the fact that they don't have any connection to school. They don't have any, communication with teachers at all. Now, there are some other schools that provide homebound instruction. The School District of Philadelphia does not currently follow that policy.
Okay, so they have a policy, but
That
it
you
only
can
kicks in
apply.
after 30 days, and they
That
have to
you can apply
proactively
only
apply.
if you've been out for 30 days.
And then you can apply. Okay.
And they will determine whether or not you qualify for homebound instruction, and it is predicated on a doctor's note that
So
explains
is that
that
30
you must be
school
out of
days
school.
or 30 days
30
total?
school days.
So that's 6 weeks. So they would have to be out of school for like 6 weeks before they could even apply. That is nuts. So, Councilwoman.
And this is why we have such a high dropout rate of this particular student population. They receive no academic support, and therefore, when they come back to school, they drop out.
That's outrageous. Councilwoman?
Well, when young mothers have their children in school, how do they work out who takes care of children? I've been by some and seen children all over the place and crying and not really people taking care of them. They're kind of like an out-of-order classroom. Who determines who watches the children when children are in a child classroom? How does that work?
So in many cases, they apply for child care subsidies that are available, but very, very difficult actually to navigate that entire system. So in terms of who's taking care of the children, it would be a case-by-case basis. There's some who have supportive families, and there's some children who do not have that support.
I mean children in the schools. They're children in a room downstairs in the school.
There are only a few schools that provide childcare, that provide that as an option. There are very few schools that do that.
And how does that work? Do you know how that works?
There may be others who
Takes
have
care
more
of the
experience
children
with
when
that.
they're in the school?
The majority of schools do not have that option. But
Wow.
if they did, it would be somewhere near the school, yes.
Do you believe that if the school district does not offer, if it requires a young person to proactively apply and then doesn't do anything for 6 weeks, are they violating any kind of, is there any violation of any kind of existing laws or health
Title
health
IX?
access? Title IX, okay.
So when they are pregnant, they certainly need to be accommodated, and as those who are breastfeeding, they need to be accommodated, and those are clear rights under Title IX. In addition, there should have equal access to educational opportunities. Certainly that the case law is clear with regard to when you are pregnant, and you need to ensure that you have equal access. We'd also make the argument that while as a parenting student, you shouldn't be penalized for having had a child based on gender.
Sure. And then in the immediate weeks, I mean, it's not like you can just pick up and go to school the next day, so.
So that we're clear, the argument on the district side would be that they apply this same homebound policy uniformly across the district. So in order to qualify for homebound, which is essentially saying that you have an excused absence, you have to get a doctor's note to support that, et cetera.
Well, I know that, Councilwoman, I think I can speak for both of us, and I'm sure there'll be other members of City Council who'd like to meet with you more clearly so that we can formulate a better policy and then go back to the school district and make sure that we clarify theirs, because that's a very big concern for all of us.
And there are several issues relating to pregnant parenting teams that we'd love the opportunity to be able to provide testimony about.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to this entire panel. And thank you very much to everybody who stayed. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to testify? If you could come forward, please. Especially as we were just talking about young mothers. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. She's precious.
Thank you. Okay. So do I start? Okay. So my name's Alexis Hurst. I have been a Philadelphia resident my entire life. I have been through the Philadelphia public school system also my entire life. And I am also a student at Temple University. And we'll see in a few years, maybe this one will also be in the public school system. I have sat and tried to listen as much as possible with this one, but I have also looked at and listened to a lot of you guys' ideas and solutions, and I would like to really emphasize the importance of cultural competence in education.
Yes.
Because a lot of these issues arise and continue to stay pertinent because we don't have the conversations about the underlying issues that surround cultural and racism and even classism in our education system. And to answer your question a few minutes back about how daycares in high schools would work. I myself was not a high school mother, but I was friends with a lot of people who were, and I actually attended Abraham Lincoln High School, where there is a daycare center present on the facility. What they basically do is they have a separate building just for the daycare alone that the students are allowed to sign up for, and they'll watch them during the course of the day. If you're able to feed the baby or if you're nursing, they'll give you time during the school day to do that, and then you can pick them up outside of school. I do know that that's not frequent around Philadelphia, so that is something that would probably could be in the works within a few years, because it is important to get these students back into school and not let having a child deter them from being a better person or, educating themselves further. And to elaborate more on the cultural competence, I myself have seen a lot of teachers coming in and out of schools, and partly it's because they don't understand how to effectively work with their students. So it becomes an issue of criminalizing them, sexualizing them, putting them in this box where they can't learn. And I feel like that's such a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem with the Philadelphia students, because like someone said, why bother when they go to their schools and they see that they're not being treated the same? They see that their schools aren't adequate compared to suburban schools. They see that they're being criminalized and their teachers may or may not be able to help them or have the resources necessary to help them. So I think, by having that conversation of what can we do to help the students in their exact areas, because not all students are the same, not all schools are the same, and not all areas in Philadelphia are the same. So everyone has different needs that need to be met from, different aspects. So someone brought up the idea of having a community liaison that talks to you guys. I think that there needs to definitely be more than one. That way we can work on how to help students in different neighborhoods without excluding anyone, without making anyone feel that they're less important or that their lives are not as efficient or doesn't matter as much as other students in other districts, because we all need it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you. We'd love to make sure that we have your information so that if we as we kind of do more conversations, we'd love to stay in touch.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening.
My name is Jannie Acklin. I'm a junior at the Philadelphia. You can't hear me?
Yeah, could you speak closer to the microphone?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jannie Acklin. I'm a junior at the Philadelphia High School for Girls, and I'm just here to testify about my experience as a student in the Philadelphia School District. So, just last week, my teacher said to my class, if you want more practice for your exams, bring a pack of paper so I can print it out. And when she said this, I became very puzzled, because as a school, it is a given that we need paper, and it is also a given that as a class of international baccalaureate students, we would want more practice for an exam that not only determines whether we actually retain the material or not, but also whether we receive college credit, which could potentially cut down the cost of our tuition in the future. It is to my understanding that our schools receive $30,000 to cover the cost of materials throughout the school year, but it is clearly not enough if our teachers have to resort to asking the students for packs of paper and expo markers. In addition to this, every day I walk into bathrooms that lack toilet paper, paper towels, and hand soap, as well as classrooms that lack tissue and hand sanitizer, which are the necessities of a building. It should not be the obligation of the students to maintain a healthy and safe environment. I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to have the three of you speak. Is that okay? Together, and then I might have a few questions for you. Hi, good evening.
Hi, my name is Catherine Ramos. I'm 12 and I go to Ben Franklin Elementary. I'm really lucky that my school has so many cool things. There's clubs you can join like Girl Scouts. The city year people that help out in classrooms are nice. And some of them even stay after school to help with clubs too. There's safety patrol and student government and peer mediation programs that help students help each other out. Well, in all honesty, my school had all those things 6 years ago when my sister used to go there. Now, it's hard to believe we're talking about the same school. In my Franklin, the only after-school clubs available are 3 sports. We don't have city year anymore. We're not taught how to help others communicate, and in the process, taught how to communicate better ourselves. My sister had the luxury of having the same teachers year after year. When school started last August, 3 new faces replaced ones that had been in Franklin since even before my sister. In my Franklin, students throw breakfast at each other and sometimes even at the teachers. There are never consequences because of the lack of trust. Sometimes my teacher doesn't even let us have breakfast. In my Franklin, the ceilings chip and the heating is always on the older part of the building. On the really hot days, everything is sticky. I was really nervous to come up here today, but I'm here because the other students and I deserve way more than what we're getting right now. I feel like I'm not getting a good education, and I feel like nothing is being done about it. I'm here today to ask you what you are going to do about it.
First of all, I want to thank both of you for your courage to come, and I really appreciate what you both had to say. Particularly, if I could just address a little bit separately for Girls High. So you're being asked to bring in toilet paper and...
Not toilet paper,
Okay.
but my biology teacher, she basically just said, like, if you guys want more help or if you want more practice with our IB bio exams, which are this Thursday actually, she said you guys need to bring me a pack of paper so I can print it out and you guys can have like a physical copy in front of you. And it was kind of like, it was confusing to me because this test is like, it's very important for all of the IB students. And so just the fact that you're making the students feel obligated to buy school supplies, it's just not fair. But it's understandable because our schools aren't getting enough funding to actually buy supplies year round. So.
All right, thank you very much, and we will for sure follow up. And then to the young lady from Ben Franklin, I saw you earlier. Thank you so much for testifying. I really appreciate it. You know, one of the things that we're trying to do is get these things, get some of these questions asked about what's happening at your school. What I would like to do is try to follow up tomorrow with your, just make a couple of phone calls, make sure. Your school is at Ben Franklin Elementary, is that right? Do you remember the address of where it is? If you don't, we can find it. That's okay. We'll find it. I want to thank you at age 12 to come forward and talk about what's happening in your school and talk about how your sister and your family members had a certain kind of education and what you expect and demand is what you deserve. And we're going to work our best. And if we don't, we're going to make sure we find you something that you need. You should not have to go through that, but I want to thank you for being so brave and coming forward. I know how hard that is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to this panel, and thank you. We will be following up. So we, first of all, I want to thank everybody, and especially to our Unite folks who are here today. We have to close up because our stenographer, so we're going to ask if we could either have one person from an organization or family speak, and then we will make sure that we collect your testimony. We are going to be working very closely with you to be able to share that. But if just one person could represent, that would be very helpful. Yes, ma'am, please. Thank you very much for being here and for your patience.
Thank you for the invite. Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Linda Todd. I am a school district employee, and I have been with the district for 11 years, and apparently I love what I do. Every day at my school, someone is calling me mom. I be called grandmom, and I love what I do. And even at 68 years old, I am still working every day with my children at my school.
you.
I just refuse to retire. I just refuse to. My position is student climate staff. My wages every 2 weeks is like $421 and some change. My mortgage alone is $781. That don't include the gas, the electric, the water, and whatever else I have to pay. But what I'm asking is, I believe that we should have fair wages for fair work. And I'm saying, the job that I do, the money don't add up for the work that I do. And I am a student climate staff, and I am the one to be with the children. I'm trying to make this stop. I am a student climate staff. I work for the Philadelphia School District. I work at Frankfurt High School. And my job entails the security of the children.
Could you clarify what high school you're with?
I work at Frankfurt High School,
Frankfurt.
and I'm a student climate staff worker. Now, it's funny that I'll go to work at 7:30, I'm done at 12:30. I work 5 hours a day, but the kids are there, 7 hours? I think 7 a day. And I don't understand how come that we have such short hours when we needed to be there for as long as those kids are there. So I'm asking City Council that I believe that we should have, we are union workers, first of all. You know, we all union. And I believe because we are union, we should have fair wages like everybody else. And it's sad when you got people working for the Philadelphia School District that's actually getting food stamps, medical assistance, and none of that should be happening, because if you're a school district employee, our wages should be enough for us to take care of our families, put food on our table, and be able to buy our kids the necessary things that we need. And what I'm asking is, when you guys do the budget, I hope y'all take into consideration that we need money just like everybody else do. And thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And what are your, are you paid per hour?
Yes, I am.
And do you meet the city's living wage standard, which is currently $12, moving up to 13 some in July?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. We will be working with you on that. It is important for all of our city contractors and subcontractors, of which we consider the school district, to be moving towards those wages. It's the least we can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I want to make sure that we respect everybody's time, but thank you, Mama Gail, for being here. But we have about only a few minutes for each one of you, so if you could keep your...
I'm used to it, Helen.
Well,
I'm quite used to that.
I did not realize that we had so many additional speakers, but
Well, I
we're
had
glad
my
to
name
have
on it.
you
I
here.
thought my name was on the list.
Okay.
I didn't hear you call it, though.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Mama Gail.
Thank you. I haven't, and I didn't
Could
have
you
my
just state your
glasses.
name for the record?
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm Gail Clouden, also known as Mama Gail. I'm looking at the resolution, and I was listening to testimony of many people that I heard, and I heard someone say they were in agreement with everything everyone said. I'm never in agreement with everything everyone said. And as I'm looking at this resolution, my concern is always several things. Black people getting work. That's my concern all the time. I heard the lady sitting here talking about the playground, and that concerned me when she talked. I thought she said about a 10-year contract. And I sit month after month when I'm in the country or in the city at the school board meeting, as most people know, and I'm constantly talking about the contracts and have been talking about it for years. We keep talking about what the school system should be doing, and another concern of mine, contracts, one, but two, educating our children. We talk about the concern for so many things, but if our children were being educated, many of them wouldn't be committing crimes, many of them wouldn't have the behavior that we see. When you talk about creating a connector, Councilwoman, when you talk about that, I'm thinking in terms of spaces that I've been creating over the years in the school district, having been involved over 30 years now. I've created repeatedly spaces where community and schools can come together, only to deal with what God told me as I asked for words to use: roadblockers, gatekeepers, opportunists, and neutralizers. I created a space most recently at Penrose School, and for the most part, things have been going pretty well. However, people in the district have not learned how to work, and this is no stigma to attach to the principal because she's a good principal. However, people really don't know how to work when it comes to parent engagement, parent involvement. And so while you're asking, or this resolution, I'm not sure where we are with the resolution if it was passed, but there are several concerns that I have, so I would love to sit and talk to you about them. Because, go ahead, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. I would love to sit and talk to the Education Committee about the concerns that I have for what you're talking about. We've had models of community schools for many years in our community. And so when it was recently talked about, and I'm not sure if it was 2-3 years ago, but I remember when people were talking about community schools as if it was something new. This is not new in Philadelphia. So I want to talk about that at another time. I'm not going to prolong this, but I'm going to say we have got to hold the school district accountable. People keep talking about spending money. We see money wasted every year. There's what's called, and you know, I'm sure you know, about panic spending. At the end of the year when money's about to go back, everybody's buying something. That something is usually books that sit in closets for years after it's paid for, year after year. I'm not going to talk any longer. I'm going to say, let's get to the business of educating children again.
Thank you so much, Mama
Thank
Gail.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Mama
evening.
Gail, I'm
Yes,
sorry I missed our appointment. I'd like us to set that up.
Excuse me?
I'd like it, will you call Belinda and reset our appointment that I had to cancel about 2 weeks ago?
Before I came in.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Great. Again, just a reminder, we have to the hearing we have to close this building, so if you can just keep your comments very brief, we'll make sure that you can submit anything for the record, but please, thank you.
Hi, Miss B. I'm just a humanitarian from Philadelphia. Hi, Miss B. I'm a humanitarian from Philadelphia. I'm really talking about DHS.
Could you
children. I'm here to
state your
talk
name
about.
for the record?
Say it again, please.
Could you state your name for the record?
Yes, Miss Bennett.
Okay.
I'm just a
Your
humanitarian from
first and-
Philadelphia.
Okay. Your first and last name?
Hasana.
Okay.
Hasana. I'm just a humanitarian from Philadelphia. I just want to let y'all hear the story about how children and DHS are like being separated or needlessly separated in DHS. I'd like to know if y'all could help me go public with the awareness of children being separated by their families. I'm trying to get that's all I got to say, mostly DHS.
Yes. Thank you, Ms.
That's
Bennett.
all I got to say.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I'm asking could y'all help me get the children that are wrongfully injured in DHS be compensated or be dealt or have a lawyer to represent them for reunification, because some of them are being separated by the courts needlessly. It happened to a friend of mine. I have 3 ladies say their daughters were pregnant at a young age in DHS. I'd like to know if y'all can get the council to pass the law maybe in Harrisburg or elsewhere to reunite families and compensate the families in DHS who've been injured in DHS, because children have been injured in DHS. I'm just here to make awareness of that and make awareness of child abuse. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you
If
for being
anybody
here.
can help us anyway, my email address is visionsforsuccess@gmail.com. It's VISIONS, number 4, then SUCCESS, the number 2, and the letter U, @gmail.com. Ms. Bennett.
Thank
That's
you.
all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Remember,
Bennett.
they do come first. They're our future, too.
Thank you. Please, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Latoya Diggs Clay. My daughter, she goes to B.B. Comegys Elementary School, 5100 Greenway Avenue. So I'm speaking today as a concerned mother. My concern is that elementary schools are not safe. Metal detectors need to be installed to keep not only school children protected, but the school staff. It is too easy for a firearm to find its way into an elementary school. On February 22nd, Friday afternoon, I had received a call from my husband. He was on his way to pick up our daughter from school. He told me the school had a lockdown and they were not letting anyone get their children. He told me that the police were there with their dogs going in and around the school. He also said that some parents were saying that someone was in the school with a gun. I suddenly felt sick to my stomach and my heart sank. My worst fear became my reality. I was going through a real-life nightmare that no parent should have to go through. I work in North Philadelphia and my daughter attends school in Southwest Philadelphia. I ride SEPTA, and on that particular day, SEPTA was running slow. My heart was pounding and I was trying not to cry on the way to my daughter's school. I was praying all the way there that the Lord keep my daughter safe, my 9-year-old daughter. I kept thinking about the other schools across the country that have had school shootings. Sandy Hook Elementary School jumped into my head, and that made me panic even more. By the time I got to the school, the lockdown was over. I was able to talk to the principal. She told me that there wasn't a gun. I went home, hugged my daughter tight, and I cried. My daughter said, "Don't cry, Mom. I was brave." And that made me cry even more. My concern is that it could have been a whole lot worse. It's only one step away from the school shootings that have been happening across the country. I will continue to have that uneasiness of sending my child to school until something is done. We cannot wait until after the fact to then do something. Let's do something now before it is too late. In conclusion, it is imperative that we solidify our children's safety first and foremost above all else. And just past April, that just went past, 11-year-old at my daughter's school committed suicide. I was talking to the school liaison with another parent, and it turned out that he was being bullied because he was overweight, and he had a little brother that went to that school, and he was trying to defend his brother, and they were picking on him. And my thing is, what if he was a different type of boy, and he was able to get a hand on a firearm, and he decided to come in and take out whoever was bullying him? Thank you.
First of all, thank you so much for coming in today. I really appreciate it. Comegys has been on both myself and the Councilwoman's radar for a while. We've had a lot of appeals for help from Comegys parents. We are going to bring this up with the school district when they come in next week. I'd love to get your testimony on the record. If you have something written that you feel comfortable giving to us, we'd like to pass it along to the school district because we really do need them to address what you said, which is like, there's absolutely no school that starts without knowing that the safety of each and every child there is the #1 priority. You don't start with learning, you don't start with dance, arts, music, whatever they say, it's all hollow if children don't feel safe and if parents don't feel secure that their children are safe. So I want to thank you for coming out tonight, for making sure that that's our #1 priority for schools, and that I would say that we don't have to do it just through metal detectors or security guards. We actually need to do it through loving attention to kids' needs, especially when they're being bullied and harassed like that young man was. It breaks our heart to know that at age 11 that happened. It's terrible, and I just want to say thank you for not letting us be allowed to forget Comegys, because it's important to all of us here. Councilwoman?
Thank you. I agree. We worked on that case with that youngster, and we want you to know that we're here for you too. Right at the end of the hall. We're always here. We're happy to work with you, happy to deal with any issues you face, and use us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here who would like to testify?
I wanted to, but I didn't know if we were out of time.
Are you related together or no? If you're not, come on up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being here and for being so patient.
Thank you. Good afternoon, City Council. My name is Carly King, and I'm a resident here in Philadelphia, also a student at Columbia University's Graduate School of Social Work. I'm the parent of 2 Philadelphia public school graduates. One is here with her daughter, another one is working, and I've also been in Child Protective Services for over 10 years in this city. A 2017 Pew Trust report revealed that not only does 26% of Philadelphians live in poverty, but of the 10 major comparable U.S. cities, Philadelphia has the highest rates of deep poverty in America, defined as families living more than 50% below the poverty line. An array of media sources came together in the past 2 years and began highlighting stories about the poverty in Philadelphia using the hashtag #BrokenPhilly. As a social worker, I see daily how poverty affects Black and brown communities and how it blurs the lines between child abuse and neglect for families disproportionately for our communities of color. Granted, there are many ways that the city is trying to approach poverty and many angles that need to be examined. However, I came here to you today to speak on a very critical way that you can help economic equity and support families in our community. A few years ago, Diane Sawyer of NBC filmed inside Strawberry Mansion High School, right here in North Philadelphia, highlighting Mansion as one of the most dangerous schools in America. Her months walking the hallways to create an hour-long news special revealed to the entire nation the disparities that we have in this city, the lack of resources, staff, and hope that Philadelphia school students face daily. I've had students tell me that they don't even dream because there's no hope for the future beyond their teenage years, as they reveal that survival is more of a priority than education. There have been recent reports, as we've discussed today, citing lead, mold, and asbestos at alarming rates in our school buildings. With inadequate facilities, low staffing, antiquated curriculums, lack of integrated behavioral health services, lack of diversity training, counselors and support, I've seen more families enter the child welfare system from truancy or education-related referrals than any other point of entry. I understand that City Council and the school board are seeking community input regarding the budget. I'd like to present, however, that the fair funding education formula most recently put forth by our governor is neither fair nor getting the funding where it's most needed. The Education Law Center, who was here earlier, recently explained that the gap in per pupil spending between a typical affluent district and a poor district in Pennsylvania in the 2017 school year had grown to $3,778 per child. That means we're spending almost $4,000 more on wealthy children than our poor children. Researchers right here in our city at UPenn, who also don't pay taxes, have studied the high return on investment in early childhood education and the long-term cost to benefit ratio of investing in education, yet we're not taking it seriously. To break cycles of intergenerational poverty in Philadelphia, we must invest in education and first consider those most in need. Equality is not the same as equity. And our previously proposed budgets do not level the playing field, let alone provide for an enriching educational experience. Our students deserve to have safe and toxin-free buildings, books, counselors, nurses. They should have arts and recreation, career development, modernized classrooms, and staff that are equipped with the cultural humility to work with the families and their multifaceted needs rather than refer to DHS and law enforcement. We need advocacy for state and federal funding. In a city of over 1.5 million people, where 81% of our public school students are living in poverty, our proposed budget that includes modernization to only 11 schools and only 25 new STEM and special ed teachers is not sufficient. I'm urging you to consider the budget while negotiating for more funding. I'm asking you to consider how many Philadelphia schools reflect that even since 1954, Brown versus Board of Ed, our Black and brown children still receive a very separate and unequal educational experience. I'm certainly available and would love to help to have more discussion and present further research if desired. Thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thank you all for
so
waiting
much for
for that.
taking the time to stay here and share that with us. That's extremely powerful, and we're really appreciative. I hope to see it as a letter to the editor or an op-ed in the paper, actually. Beautifully
I can do
written.
that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who is here to testify on this resolution? Seeing none, the public hearing on resolution numbers 190300 and 190301 is recessed to the call of the chair. I'd like to remind everybody that the School District of Philadelphia will be in City Council on Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. We wanted to make sure that the people's voices came first, and we will be pursuing all of your voices in that hearing as well. Thank you very much for everybody's attendance. Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman.